Okay, welcome back to the channel, Hobby1 Kenobi. We're continuing work on the F-20 Tigershark by Freedom Model Kits. As you can see, I've got the parts painted and there's also a gloss coat. And at this point, I'm ready to start applying a wash. Now, this is one of our favorite techniques in the model world. As you can probably tell, many of my videos deal with doing washes. It really adds, it really changes a model from a toy look to something more realistic. I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that we're creating shadows that are not available to things that are small. So if you think about, light hitting something that's large, shadows are going to affect it greatly. But if you think about shadows on something small, it doesn't have the same look. And so when we have things on a smaller scale, we need to sort of exaggerate the shadows that we see on things that are large. And so this is one of the great ways of doing it. I think that oil washes do other things other than create shadows, so that's mostly what we're talking about. But it also adds a layer of filter, which is we're changing the tone, as well as adding some sort of weathering, right? There's some natural wear and tear. And I think that adding these colors really adds to that. So we're going to use my favorite Winton oil color oil paints. Okay. And here, as you can see, I've got the titanium white and ivory black because I'm dealing with the gray. And really it's the gray that I'm focusing on. I'm not going to go for a very light gray. This gray is already kind of a medium gray, depicting, I believe it's the light ghost gray color that we see on aircraft. And so I need to go a couple of shades darker. Now I'm going to apply some Terpenoid. This is basically odorless thinner. You can see the sample I have here is murky. This is because I don't really, honestly, I don't really care. If it's a little bit brownish or tannish, it just adds to the effect. So I've added quite a bit here. Let's see, it might have been a little too much. We'll take a look here. What I'm looking for essentially is runny enough to move into places, but also with enough pigment, so thick enough so that the color stays in that location. I do want to keep one thing in mind. Yes, I'm dealing with shadows, and I'm also dealing with a vehicle that isn't going to be heavily weathered. All right, so if it's a little bit light on the weathering, it would make sense for this vehicle. All right, and I'm just getting it on there. Okay. I've heard this described as a sludge wash. I think the difference between a sludge wash and another type of wash, which we might call a pin wash, is that a pin wash is typically detailed, so you're gonna pinpoint where it goes. Whereas a sludge wash, which is what I'm doing here, you just kind of put all over. Yeah, I think this will work. It could go just a little bit darker, but I think we'll be all right. Okay. I don't want really too much. What I mean is I don't want too much buildup. So you can see here in the corner how there's a lot of liquid. I do want it to dry so that I can start working with it right away. If you have too much built up in a corner, then it's going to take much longer to dry. Okay, that'll work well. Great. Set these aside. Okay, so now I'm going to remove the dried up oil paints. So let's take a look here. I'm going to use a Q-tip, and I'm trying to leave just enough in the cracks and crevices. Okay. Alright, so I want you to see this. This is actually too wet still. It lifted off a little bit too easily. There might have been a little bit of the Terpenoid in a little pocket somewhere in here, and it's now caused it to smear. So what I want to do is, I'm going to leave this section alone. Let's go to another spot. Hopefully it's more dry here. Let's see. Okay, this is the same kind of problem here. It's going to be a little bit too wet. This might also have been a result of using too thin Terpenoid, but I think it's just simply not dry enough. So let's take a look here. I can still work with this to a degree. I still want to remove quite a bit of it. So I'm going to find the larger surfaces and focus on removing the paint from those areas. Alright, that'll do for now. Yeah, it appeared to be a little too wet. So to speed up the process now, I'm going to use a heat gun. And I like using heat guns. This is a particularly good model here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my hand in front of it often. I want to make sure it's not getting too warm. Obviously the plastic here can melt. It's pretty warm. So I can use a Q-tip. I also like to use a brush. So this brush, what I'm going to do is I'm going to essentially move the dried paint around and push it into crevices. And this is a fairly soft, weak brush. So even if it's a little bit wet, it's still going to work pretty well. Okay. Now, I'm not really going to see this on the model, this area, but I just want to kind of give you an idea. There we go. You can see how, with the use of the brush and the Q-tip, I sort of move the paint into the sides. Okay, that's sort of the effect here we want. The brush pushes it around, and the Q-tip lifts it from the highest points. So this is another way to deal with this. All right. So it's going to work all over here. But yeah, these side panels, I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on this because it's not going to be seen. Probably about up to here is where we're actually we will see. Okay, lifting from the seat. Again, I don't want the surfaces to be too dirty. This is not a vehicle that saw a lot of Well, not a vehicle that's actually saw any action. And the one I'm building is in prototype form. Okay. And then I'll just do the same for all the other parts. So that pretty much wraps up using oil-based paints to create a wash. Thanks so much for watching, and please hit subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.